Right, so this is my first video on masculinity or men in the 1600s. A lot of what I'm going to talk about you might already know because of our previous study of Macbeth, but I'm going to focus on what the idea of a man was all about back in that time, and that's going to relate a lot to how the character of Macbeth is presented by Shakespeare in the play. So, in the early 1600s, obviously it was a patriarchy, which placed men at the top of hierarchy in society, and they were at the top of that hierarchy, you know, both due to religious ideas, historical ideas. However, the only contrasting thing about that is that Elizabeth I, she did rule, and she ruled very well for a long time. And people were quite fond of her. She was very popular. So, in a way, perhaps her reign maybe challenged some of those ideas about patriarchy, but men were still very much in charge of the family, very much in charge of society and religion and everything else. So, the ideal man back in Shakespeare's time was physically fit, so he was completely normal, he was strong, he was emotionally stable, probably not showing a weakness of emotion very much. He was brave in the face of danger and unyieldingly protective, okay? This is a big idea of family and country. So what came first to a man at that time should be his family and his country, and that is what he should be primarily concerned with, and he should bravely defend that no matter what. So, let's look at how this plays out. So, Macbeth at the start of Shakespeare's play is, you know, the ideal man back in Shakespeare's time. Shakespeare has him presented at the very beginning of the play. He's fighting Norway for Scotland, and Macbeth isn't shown to us. His actions are described by a sergeant in order to create a vision of a perfect warrior. So, on the stage, they're describing his actions and how he won the battle and how he, you know, overthrew his foes and gathered all the Scotland forces together, showing him as a brave, self-sacrificing, somebody who wasn't selfish, clever, skillful, and motivational to others. So he is the perfect man. And here's an image of him, you know, in a battle or in the battle against Norway. And he is at the forefront of everything, leading the troops, you know, paving the way to success. So, Shakespeare purposefully has Macbeth start the play as a hero. He is respected by all, including the audience, and he puts his country before himself, okay? And he doesn't expect any reward. Him being named the Thane of Cawdor comes as a surprise to him. He doesn't expect anything for it. He does it for the love of his country, which makes him a very great man. Shakespeare creates these heroic qualities in order to weave a tragedy. You have to have a fallen hero in order to have a tragedy. Shakespeare builds them up at the beginning, which allows the audience back at that time to watch his demise as a man and leader and end with his death. So we have this great man who, through his own mental issues and, you know, the influence of supernatural forces and guilt, you know, just becomes nothing. So, so he later in the different from the way he starts. His downfall begins with the witches, which is quite soon after the battle, because he allows himself to be influenced by female and supernatural beings. Back at that time, we know that King James hated witches. He was obsessed with writing books about them. People were very scared of them, and females were seen as inherently evil. So, in a way, Shakespeare's sending out a warning to the audience about the evil nature of such things. Here's an image of Macbeth being influenced by the witches soon after the battle. And this is where he starts to fall apart. This is where he becomes selfish. He loses all those great manly qualities of the time. So his previous valor and unselfish desire to protect his country change very quickly. He becomes self-obsessed. He's got a thirst for power, but lacks the strength of mind or commitment to execute his plans in a skillful way. So he's not skillful anymore. He's not great at the murders he commits. He's not committed to what he's doing, and he's very easily to manipulate. So Macbeth kind of becomes a mess quite soon in the play, and he just becomes worse and worse and worse. His sexual and mental abilities become crippled. Lady Macbeth insults him constantly. He's constantly unsure of himself. And it's as if by liaising with sacrilegious forces and committing regicide is the word for killing a king, Macbeth has doomed himself as a man, and he eventually ends up, being killed by Macduff at the end, having gained nothing, and with his head cut off, no children to succeed him, and everyone hated him. So, this is Shakespeare's, way of presenting the demise of a man that was once very great, and one that becomes completely destroyed by his own ambition and by the influence of, terrible forces.